Good evening and welcome to Modern Families, the program where we discuss the pressing questions shaping childhood today. The topic for our debate tonight is one that prompts considerable discussion among parents, educators, and psychologists alike. Should children be raised in a gender-neutral way? This approach, which involves minimizing the emphasis on gender stereotypes and expectations, is advocated by some as a path to greater freedom and equality. However, others express concerns about its potential impact on a child's development and social integration. To explore this complex issue, we're joined by two distinguished guests. Dr. Liam Chen is a child psychologist and author of The Unboxed Child, who supports gender-neutral parenting. And Sarah Jenkins is a prominent journalist and a parent who has written extensively on the importance of cultural and gender identity in upbringing. Welcome to you both. Dr. Chen, let's begin with you.
Thank you, Eleanor. It's a pleasure to be here to discuss such a vital topic. The core idea of gender-neutral parenting is not, as it's often misrepresented, to erase gender or to pretend it doesn't exist. Instead, it's about liberation. It's about liberating our children from the restrictive and often detrimental stereotypes that society imposes from birth. When we talk about this, we're discussing the removal of artificial constraints that have no basis in a child's actual potential or personality. From the moment a child is born, and sometimes even before, they're placed into a pink or blue box. These colors are symbolic of a much larger set of expectations that we project onto them. Boys are given toy cars, action figures, and are encouraged to be tough, stoic, and to suppress their tears. Girls, conversely, are given dolls, miniature kitchens, and are praised for being nurturing, quiet, and accommodating. It's crucial to understand that these are not innate biological directives. They're societal constructs, traditions we follow often without question. Research has repeatedly shown that these early life limitations can have long-lasting negative consequences. They can limit a child's interests, preventing a boy from discovering a passion for art, or a girl from exploring mechanics. They restrict their emotional vocabulary, teaching boys that vulnerability is a weakness, and they can even influence future career choices, contributing to gender gaps in many professions. By adopting a gender-neutral approach, we're simply providing a wider palette of colors for our children to paint their own lives. We're allowing them to explore all their interests, whether that's a boy who loves ballet or a girl who wants to be an engineer. We foster emotional intelligence in our sons and assertiveness in our daughters, treating them as individuals, not as representatives of a gender. This method doesn't prevent a child from identifying strongly as a boy or a girl. On the contrary, it ensures that this identity, when it forms, is authentic and self-determined. It becomes an identity based on their genuine self, rather than something prescribed to them by tradition. Ultimately, it's about raising capable, empathetic, and well-rounded individuals who are not confined by outdated expectations about what they should be.
Thank you, Dr. Chen. Sarah, your opening statement.
Thank you, Eleanor. While I appreciate Dr. Chen's perspective and agree that harmful stereotypes should absolutely be challenged, I cannot endorse this particular solution. I believe that the approach of gender-neutral parenting is a significant overcorrection that carries its own set of substantial risks. My primary concern is for the child's sense of identity and their ability to navigate the world as it currently exists, not as we might wish it to be in a perfect future. Gender, for many people, is a fundamental and positive part of their identity. It connects them to history, to community, and to family. Providing children with guidance related to their gender is not inherently oppressive. It can be a way of helping them understand themselves and their place in a social context. By deliberately withholding this framework, we risk creating a vacuum of confusion for the child at a critical stage of their development. While we, as adults, can sit in a studio and debate the nuances of social constructs, a child needs clear and consistent anchors to build their identity upon. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the social implications of raising a child this way. A child raised in a completely gender-neutral bubble does not exist in a bubble. They go to school, they have friends, and they interact with a society that is, for the most part, not gender neutral. This can lead to feelings of alienation, or worse, make them a target for bullying if their expression is perceived as different or strange by their peers. Is it fair to place this burden of social navigation and potential ostracization on a child's small shoulders? I would argue it is not. Our responsibility is to equip them for reality. We should be teaching resilience and critical thinking to challenge stereotypes from within the system, but not at the expense of a child's social and psychological comfort. This approach seems better suited to a theoretical utopia than the practical reality of raising a happy, well-adjusted child in the world we live in today.
Thank you, Sarah. You raise a crucial point about social pressure. Dr. Chen argues this is about liberation, but you suggest it could lead to isolation. How do you respond to his point that traditional gender roles are inherently restrictive and can cause long-term harm?
I believe the two are not mutually exclusive. We can, and should, fight against restrictive stereotypes without removing gender from the equation entirely. For instance, we can encourage our sons to be emotionally expressive, and our daughters to be ambitious leaders. This is about expanding our definitions of masculine and feminine, not abolishing them. It's about showing them a full range of human experience is available to them as a boy or a girl. The harm Dr. Chen speaks of comes from the negative stereotypes, such as boys don't cry or girls aren't good at math, not from the identity of being a boy or a girl itself. My concern is that the gender-neutral approach conflates these two things. It throws the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. By creating this so-called neutral environment, we might inadvertently communicate to a child that their natural inclination towards a gendered identity is somehow wrong, which could be just as confusing and harmful as the stereotypes we seek to avoid.
Dr. Chen, Sarah's argument is that we should mend, not end, our approach to gender. She suggests that gender-neutral parenting might create confusion and social hardship for a child. What is your response to the practical, real-world challenges she outlines?
The concern about social hardship is valid, but I believe it frames the problem incorrectly. It suggests we should adapt the child to a flawed system rather than fixing the system itself. If a child is bullied for expressing themselves authentically, the problem is not the child. It's the bullies, and the intolerant environment that enables them. Our role as parents, and as a society, should be to foster environments of acceptance, to teach empathy, and to challenge prejudice wherever we see it, starting with our own families. Furthermore, the idea that it creates confusion is a misunderstanding of child development. Children are incredibly adaptable and intelligent. Providing them with more choices does not confuse them. It empowers them. Confusion arises from inconsistency, hypocrisy, and judgment, not from freedom. A child who feels unconditionally loved and accepted for who they are, regardless of which toys they choose or clothes they wear, is far more likely to be confident and resilient than one forced into a restrictive role they did not choose.
Let me press you on that, Dr. Chen. Sarah mentioned the importance of gender as a positive part of identity, a way to connect with culture and history. Does a gender-neutral approach risk severing those important connections, leaving a child feeling rootless?
That's a thoughtful question, Eleanor. However, it presumes that culture is a static, monolithic entity. Culture is constantly evolving, precisely because we question it. A gender-neutral approach encourages a critical examination of which parts of our cultural inheritance are worth preserving, and which are exclusionary or harmful. It allows children to connect with their heritage in ways that are meaningful to them, without being forced into a predetermined role. For instance, it means we can celebrate historical female scientists and male artists with equal fervor, showing all children that greatness is not gendered. It allows a boy to connect with the nurturing traditions of his culture, perhaps through cooking or caregiving, without feeling his masculinity is threatened.
Sarah, your response to that? Is it not a parent's duty to prepare a child for the future, a future that we hope is more equitable, as Dr. Chen suggests?
Of course, it's our duty to prepare them for the future. But preparation involves giving them tools for the world they live in now, as well as the one we hope for tomorrow. We can't equip them for a hypothetical future at the expense of their present well-being. It feels like a high-stakes social experiment with a single child's happiness on the line. The tools they need are resilience, critical thought, and a strong sense of self. I believe a stable gender identity is a core component of that strong self for most children. It's an anchor in the storm of childhood and adolescence. Removing it doesn't necessarily make them stronger. It might just leave them adrift.
If I may, I would argue that a stable identity that is imposed upon a child is actually quite fragile. It can be shattered by experiences that do not conform to its narrow definitions. An identity that a child discovers for themselves, through genuine exploration, is far more robust and authentic. It's the difference between a house built of prefabricated walls that look strong and a house built of bricks that the child chose and tested themselves. The latter is the one that will withstand the storm, because its foundation is self-knowledge, not social compliance.
But a child isn't an architect, Dr. Chen. They're an apprentice. They need a foundation and some scaffolding to begin. To carry your analogy, your approach sounds like giving a child a pile of bricks on an empty plot and telling them to discover shelter. It's a romantic notion, but not a practical one. My approach is to provide a solid foundation, the reality of their sex, and the cultural context of gender, and then encourage them to decorate the rooms however they wish. They can paint the walls any color, fill it with any furniture they like, and even knock down a few walls later if they choose. But they start with a structure that is safe and recognizable.
We're nearing the end of our time. I'd like to move to closing statements. Sarah, you may begin.
Thank you. In closing, my position is not a defense of rigid, harmful stereotypes. It's a defense of a balanced and practical approach to parenting in the world as it is. We have a profound duty to protect our children, not just from outdated ideas, but also from the very real risks of social isolation and identity confusion. Let's empower our children with the confidence to be who they are, within a supportive framework that acknowledges their gender as a part of that identity. Let's teach our sons that kindness and empathy are masculine strengths. Let's teach our daughters that their ambition is limitless and their leadership is natural. This is how we combat stereotypes effectively, by showing a better, more inclusive version of what it means to be a man or a woman. True progress lies in reforming our understanding of masculinity and femininity, so that they are inclusive and flexible, not in pursuing a theoretical ideal that may leave our children feeling lost in the real world. Let's broaden the path for them, not remove the signposts entirely.
Thank you, Sarah. Dr. Chen, your closing statement.
To conclude, I want to reiterate that gender-neutral parenting is fundamentally about providing more, not less. It's about more choices, more opportunities for self-discovery, and more room for every child to grow into their fullest, most authentic potential. The signposts Sarah mentions have, for generations, directed children down narrow paths, many of which led to inequality, frustration, and emotional suppression. I believe it's a profound act of trust and respect to remove those specific, limiting directives. We're not leaving children lost. We're trusting them to find their own way on a vast, open landscape of human possibilities, with our love and support as their compass. This approach fosters true resilience, creativity, and authenticity. It's a forward-thinking method that prepares children not just for the world as it is, but for the more equitable and accepting world we should all be striving to create. Let's give our children the greatest gift of all, the freedom to be themselves.
Thank you both, Dr. Chen and Sarah Jenkins, for a truly insightful and respectful debate. You've left us with a great deal to consider, from the desire to liberate children from stereotypes to the practical challenges of navigating social norms. The conversation continues. Good night.